Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to this lecture series called Daily News and Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover the entire day's current affairs in a short span of time, that is within 30 minutes. So you don't have to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. Now this current affairs lecture series is very important for you if you are planning to give UPSC examination next year. You should make this lecture series a daily habit of yours. Why? Well, we all know how important current affairs are for UPSC examination, whether it's prelims or mains. Now, just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Otherwise, these current affairs would quickly skip your memory. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Alright then, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. Okay, so let's begin. Daily current affairs, 6th of April, Monday, and here is the topics list. So these are the 4 topics that are important. Okay, though the newspapers were full of various discussions, various articles, but these 4 topics are important from the perspective of UPSC examination. Alright, okay. Now, number 1 topic is FAO Food Price Index. International food prices have not risen that much as people were expecting because of the Iran war. So there is this decoupling of fuel and food prices. So why is that? Let's talk about this, okay? Then topic number 2 is Iran war and the fear of stagflation. Stagflation is when GDP is stagnant and inflation is high. Now, how can this happen? We'll talk about this. Then, well, the government has tabled Vishwas Bill 2026, which would decriminalize various provisions across various laws. This would improve ease of doing business and ease of living index for citizens. Okay. And the last topic is with respect to international relations, and that is related to Bahrain's UNSC move against Iran. So Gulf Cooperation Council have moved a resolution against Iran, against Iran's blockade of Strait of Hormuz. So why is this significant? Why is this significant for India? What is this resolution? We'll talk about this entire issue in its entirety. Okay. So these are the 4 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, and that is Food and Agricultural Organizations, FAO's Food Price Index. Now look, FAO is a United Nations organization, okay? And as the name suggests, it keeps a track of food prices, food and agriculture all over the world. Now it releases Food Price Index every year. And this Food Price Index basically tracks the prices of food items globally. Okay, now these global prices are important for those countries who are involved in import-export of food or commodities. Okay, so India is an interested party in this. Now, the March data for FAO Food Price Index was a little weird because whenever energy prices, oil prices have risen, they have had a commensurate or proportional impact on food prices also. Global energy prices, oil prices, and food prices rise together. But this time around, though the energy prices have risen sharply because of the Iran war, food prices just rose by 1%. So many people are saying that this data is a little weird because we are witnessing a decoupling of both these items, energy as well as food. Now, why is there this decoupling, and why is generally food prices and energy prices directly proportional globally? So we'll understand the reasons behind this, and we'll also understand the reasons behind this recent decoupling and how all of this impacts India. All right. So first of all, let's talk about this food price index. Okay. So first let's talk about this and then we'll talk about the reasons. Okay then. FAO Food Price Index. So what is this index? So it tracks the monthly change in international prices of basket of globally traded food commodities. It serves as a benchmark for world food situation and global inflation trends. Okay. Now, every food price index or every price index has a base year. Okay. So the index uses 2014-16 as the base period. Okay. The methodology, it is a trade weighted index calculated using, just remember this. Okay. You don't have to understand what is the methodology of this food price index. Just remember one name. And that is because the question is going to be asked on that name only. Just remember that UNFAO Food Price Index is calculated using the Laspeyres formula. Okay. Now, the thing is that this food price index basically tracks prices of 24 food items. And these 24 food items have been grouped into 5 categories. Okay, so all these 24 food items have been grouped into 5 categories. Category 1 is cereals, then vegetable oil, then dairy, sugar, and meat. Okay, so remember these 5 categories. Now, why is food price index important for India? Why should India keep a track of this index? Number one, well, import sensitivity. India is the world's largest importer of vegetable oil or edible oil. A spike in FAO vegetable oil index directly impacts India's domestic inflation because India imports a lot of edible oil. Okay, and because of that, well, if the prices of edible oils increases, India's import bill would also increase. That would cause significant current account deficit. Okay, so this is the reason. Then food security. Even if India is self-sufficient in grains, yes, we import a lot of edible oils, but we are self-sufficient in food, cereals. Even if India is self-sufficient in this category, a rise in global index affects the cost of inputs. Okay, fertilizers, animal feed, leading to imported inflation. Because India imports a lot of agricultural inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, that would cause in food inflation. And policy planning. The index helps Indian government decide on MSP, export bans. Okay, so if food inflation is high, India introduces export bans. Okay, so that, well, the food remains in India, supply increases, inflation comes down. Always remember this, that food inflation is a function of, any inflation is a function of demand and supply. Whenever demand increases more than supply, inflation happens. Now, this mismatch can happen either the increase in demand or drop in supply. Okay, just remember this. So it helps government in policy planning also, decide on MSP, decide on export bans or anything to manage food inflation. Now, this is all you need to know about food price index. Now let's talk about the current situation. Okay, so the current crisis. Decoupling has happened. Unlike past crises, international food prices are only up by 1%, despite crude oil prices up by 58%. This has never happened. Okay, well, if we talk about previous crises, well, crude oil prices increased in Russia-Ukraine war. Well, food price increased, oil prices increased. Then global financial crisis also led to oil increase. This also led to food price increase. Okay, this is not there. Okay, so this has always happened. But this time around, with the Iran crisis, we can witness a sort of decoupling. Food prices have not risen, but energy prices have. Now, the key exception is, remember, food items are categorized into 5 categories, right? All 4 categories are showing very little inflation except edible oils. Okay, edible oils is still there, and this is the weak link for India because India's import dependency is high. And why is that? Why edible oils have seen high food prices or higher rise? Well, because oil prices have risen, diesel prices have risen. So, many of these edible oils are used for manufacturing biodiesel. Now, diesel prices are high, so many countries who produce a lot of edible oils, well, they are cashing on this opportunity because diesel has increased. Well, biodiesel price has also increased. So, they are diverting the supply towards biodiesel and very little supply is there for consumption, food consumption. This has caused problems. For example, Indonesia's B50 program, which uses 50% of palm oil with diesel. USA is also increasing biofuel mandates for soybean oil and maize oil. So edible oils are being diverted towards diesel production, biodiesel production. So this has reduced supply of edible oils globally, and this has led to increased edible oil prices. Now, how oil affects food prices? This time around there is decoupling, but generally there is no decoupling. Okay, generally energy prices and food prices move together. Why? There are 3 reasons for this. Biofuel substitution. High oil prices make blending biofuels more profitable, reducing the supply available for consumption, so which is currently happening with edible oils. Then input costs. When natural gas oil becomes expensive, well, it becomes expensive for producing fertilizers and pesticides because fertilizers and pesticides use natural gas as input, raw material for production. So if natural gas becomes expensive, fertilizers become expensive, and if fertilizers become expensive, food becomes expensive, right? And logistics also. Increased fuel costs raise the price of transporting food from farm to market. So high transportation cost, high final price. So this is how oil affects food prices. Now, currently Indian economy is going through a challenge of sorts. First of all, fertilizers would become expensive. Okay, then food inflation can happen. This would really stress Indian economy. Plus, fertilizers have become expensive. And people say that this year is El Nino, which means rainfall would be less. This would further lead to reduction in wheat and rice, especially rice's yield. Supply would drop, demand is high, prices would skyrocket. So this is happening. Okay, so this is the current situation. Indian food sector might face some problems this year. It's not a good year for that. Okay, all right then. Now let's move on to next news item, and that is Iran war and stagflation. Now listen to me very carefully because we have covered Iran war many a times. We all know because of the Strait of Hormuz blockade, natural gas, oil import, trade has been disrupted. Okay, now this might lead to very high inflation in India. We have discussed the reasons for that. Okay, food inflation and many other inflations, because everything becomes expensive and transportation costs increase. So this would lead to inflation in India, and this would also stagnate economy in India. Now this will be a situation which is generally called stagflation, when the economy is stagnant and inflation is high. When such a situation arises, this is known as stagflation, stagnation, inflation. Okay. Now, when there is stagflation, it is very difficult for the governments and RBI to control inflation as well as boost the economy. Why? Because whenever there is high inflation, RBI reduces interest rates. Okay. Now, when you increases interest rates, this reduces inflation, but this also reduces your GDP, and RBI can take it. But when GDP is already low, increasing interest rates would control inflation, but that would suppress GDP even further. So it's a very difficult situation, and there is a very high risk of India falling into this situation. Why? Let's investigate this topic. Okay. So Iran war and stagflation. So what is the context? The ongoing US-Israel-Iran war has triggered a perfect storm for the global economy, mirroring the 1970s energy crisis. What is stagflation? It is a rare economic phenomena with stagnant growth or recession and high unemployment, high inflation. And this inflation is mostly because of supply shock. Now listen to me very carefully. There are two types of inflation: demand pull and supply shock. Now what is the difference? Inflation happens when demand is higher than supply. Now this can happen by two reasons. Either the demand increases, which is demand pull, or the supply falls, supply shock. Stagflation generally happens when there is a supply shock, like the current crisis. There is not enough supply of LPG, LNG, oil. Supply shock. You understand? Now, why is it dangerous? Because traditional policy tools fail. Generally, when there is high inflation, you increase interest rates. But when your economy is already suffering, increasing interest rates would suppress your GDP even further, because when loans become expensive, well, the economy gets suppressed because people are not ready to take loan to invest in their factory or anything. So economy is suppressed. Okay. So this is a problem. Now, LPG crisis, India's Achilles heel. Achilles heel means India's vulnerability. Now, why is India vulnerable to LPG crisis? First of all, import dependency. India is not self-reliant when it comes to LPG. 60 to 65% of its LPG is imported, and most of it comes from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, passing through Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Strait of Hormuz is a choke point. Narrow corridor carries 20% of the world's seaborne oil trade and LNG LPG trade. Iran has blocked it. Supply versus price. The crisis is not just about higher prices, but about physical unavailability. It's not that supply has been disrupted, there is high demand, prices have increased. Supply is so low that there is physical unavailability. Okay, it's not just unaffordability, there is unavailability as well. Okay, and black marketing. Shortages have led to commercial cylinders selling for nearly double the rate in the informal market. So what is happening? Leakages. There are few bad players who are diverting LPG supply towards black market, because black market the prices are high. So there is further shortage of LPG cylinders. You understand? So this is the situation. Now, the impact of this Strait of Hormuz crisis is beyond the kitchen, beyond LPG as well, in agriculture, because fertilizers use natural gas. If fertilizers become expensive, agriculture suffers. Industry also suffers because there are various industries like ceramics and glass which rely on natural gas as input. They also suffer. Then the chula reversion. This is the social cost. Government wanted that all villagers should come to LPG cylinders for cooking, come to cooking stove. They were using firewood, traditional chulas for cooking. That caused a lot of pollution. So government launched Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, providing 5 kg LPG cylinders. Now with LPG shortage, these villagers would go back to chulhas, for which the government, well, did a lot of hard work to bring them to LPG cylinders. Now they'll go back to chula because chula is available for them, firewood. So this is the social cost to this and environmental cost as well. So this is the impact for India. Now, other strategic vulnerabilities are when it comes to oil, India has a strategic petroleum reserve, but there is no such thing for LPG. We only have 22 days worth of LPG left. Okay, plus supply chain rigidity. Transitioning to alternative suppliers for LPG is slower. If you don't want to be dependent on Strait of Hormuz and move to other areas for buying LPG, that would take a lot of time. We don't have that much time. So these are some strategic vulnerabilities. All right. Okay, now enough of the Iran crisis. Now let's shift to other things. And the third topic is Jan Vishwas Bill 2026. You see, government wants to improve ease of doing business. Government wants to improve ease of living index for citizens. But that will happen only when our country's laws, rules and regulations are simple, easy. In our country, there are so many laws and rules which are, you shouldn't have these. Okay, there are certain provisions, like there are certain things if you do, there is very heavy punishment. There are criminal punishments. You can go to jail for very small things. Now, this really hampers ease of doing business and ease of living. So, government launched Jan Vishwas law earlier, which decriminalized various things. Okay, various colonial era laws were replaced, revoked, or changed. Okay, and this is happening in phases. So, Jan Vishwas law has been passed. Now, another version of Jan Vishwas law called Jan Vishwas Bill is being passed to improve the law's legal architecture of the country. Okay, so let's talk about the recent bill. All right, so Jan Vishwas Bill. Okay, so about the bill. So this bill is a landmark legislative exercise aimed at decriminalizing and rationalizing minor offences across a wide range of central laws. The first phase was Jan Vishwas Act in 2023. Now there is another bill. Scale of this bill? Well, it amends 784 provisions across 79 central laws. Total impact? Well, it collectively decriminalizes or rationalizes 1,018 individual actions and omissions, individual crimes, which were earlier crimes. The underlying philosophy is shifting from a state of suspicion, government is always suspicious of its citizens, to state of trust by ensuring that criminal justice system is reserved for serious crimes, not minor crimes. Okay, for minor crimes also people are going to courts. Now this is harassment of citizens as well as increasing the workload on our judicial system. We should do away with this. Convert these minor offences into civil penalties. Okay, now what are the key changes? Well, there are some 805 offences for which jail term existed. Well, that has been removed. Then 125 offences have been removed altogether. Okay, and punishments for minor offences, the punishments have also been made minor. These changes have been made. All right. Now, which key areas would be affected? Which key areas would be happy with this bill? So, business and industry, T Act has been reformed, Coir Industry, Legal Meteorology Act. Then infrastructure and transport, because Motor Vehicle Act, some driving crimes, many offences have been rationalized. Coastal Shipping Act, Petroleum Pipelines, Municipal Governance. Some colonial era laws existed, like Cattle Trespass Act, Livestock Importation Act. These have been reformed. Okay, so these changes which were important. All right, now, why was there a requirement for this reform? Well, as of 2024, India had 370 central laws with more than 7,000 criminal offences. 74% of these laws were not core criminal laws, like genuine crime breaking. Okay, over 5,000 offences carried potential jail terms which were not even required because these were minor offences. They really harassed the citizens. So this has to be removed. Okay. Now, what is the critical analysis of this bill? Though more debates would come, but there are some pros and cons. Pros: reduces the burden on judiciary because petty cases were wasting the time of judiciary. Protects citizens from Inspector Raj and lowers compliance cost of MSMEs. But the challenges or cons are success depends on the competence and integrity of officers who would be involved in this. There is also a need for state governments to pass Jan Vishwas laws for state level things, because this Jan Vishwas Act Well, reform central laws. For state laws, states have to do it, individual states. Okay? All right. And now let's move on to last news item of the day, and that is Bahrain's UNSC action against Iran. Now, you see, we all know that Iran has attacked Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, even Oman, which was their ally. Okay, they have attacked them. Plus, these countries depend on oil and gas trade, which has been blocked by Iran by blocking Strait of Hormuz. Now, these countries are not just suffering, well, militarily, they're also suffering financially. That is why these countries have got together, and Bahrain, which is a member of Gulf Cooperation Council, a council of these countries, well, has moved a resolution against Iran and Iran's action of blockading Strait of Hormuz in United Nations Security Council. Okay, now what is this resolution? What impact will it have on India? Let's talk about this, okay? And what is the geopolitics behind all of this? Let's talk about this. So this resolution is called Resolution 2817, tabled by Bahrain on behalf of Gulf Cooperation Council and Jordan. Gulf Cooperation Council includes UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Formally adopted on 11th March 2026. Key objective: to condemn the maritime blockade and seek international action against Iran's military interference with global fuel supplies. The entire world is suffering. Now, strongly backed by P3. So US, UK, France support it, plus 136 countries have also supported it. Now, P3 are these three permanent members of United Nations Security Council. There are two other permanent members, China and Russia. And China and Russia are allies of Iran. So they have abstained. They have voted neither yes nor no in this situation. Okay, they have abstained, though India supports it. Now, what are the geopolitical ramifications for this? So this is considered a middle power diplomacy. Bahrain is a middle power, Saudi Arabia is a middle power, and instead of USA, UK, France, these middle power countries have gotten together to condemn actions or to take actions against Iran. Saudi Arabia and UAE usually lead GCC foreign policy. However, they are currently exercising restraint. They are not directly attacking Iran because they are fearful of Iran directly attacking them and completely obliterating them. Remember, Saudi Arabia and UAE don't have very good armies of their own. They completely depend on USA for their security. And currently, USA is already stretched. Okay, so they are avoiding directly antagonizing Iran. That is why, well, they chose Bahrain to table this resolution, and they, being members of GCC, have backed Bahrain. So indirectly, they are condemning Iran. Bahrain as the vanguard. As the smallest GCC member and holder of the rotating UNSC presidency as a non-permanent member, Bahrain has taken the lead. The significance: this allows the GCC to present a unified front based on international law. Article 51 is right to self-defense. And Iran is basically attacking them, so they have the right to self-defense, and Iran is attacking them financially also. So they have the right to self-defense. So by presenting this resolution, these countries have invoked Article 51 of United Nations Charter, which is right to self-defense. So this is the entire resolution. Now, what will be its impact on India? Okay, implications for India. Well, it is important because Strait of Hormuz is important for India's energy security. Plus, whatever happens in Middle East is important for India because there are many Indians working in Middle East. They are called Indian diaspora. Plus, Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, Arabian Sea is important for India's maritime security because there is a strong naval presence of India in these regions. Clear? Now, this is the entire topic. But you need to know one more thing, one very curious thing about Bahrain. Okay, look, most of the GCC countries have Sunni leadership. Okay, remember this. Iran is Shia. Okay, and there is this Sunni Shia conflict playing out in West Asia. Now, with Bahrain, the thing is that, well, Bahrain is majority Shia, but the ruling family, Al Khalifa family, is Sunni. Okay, and those Shias do support Iran. Like Houthis support Iran in Yemen. Okay, now there is a case where, well, when Ayatollah Khamenei was killed, there were huge protests in Bahrain also, okay, by Shia populations, but they were controlled. And these people there, I mean, Iran has a strong presence in among these Shia populations of Bahrain. Now, some people say that Iran might create a militia within Bahrain against Bahrain government composed of these Shia people like the Houthis. But many people say that this is impossible to happen in Bahrain. It was possible in Yemen, but not in Bahrain. Why? There are three reasons. First of all, the Shia population is economically integrated. They are not economically deprived. So if they do make a militant organization, well, they have a lot to lose financially. So there is less motivation. Then Bahrain has very high-tech surveillance, cameras and all. So it will be very difficult to do something secretly. And there is significant US military presence in Bahrain. So that makes things difficult, which was not there in Yemen. All right. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. It would add more value if you're regular and consistent with this lecture series and make it a part of your daily routine. Make it a daily habit of yours. All right. On that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.